Against this right back, Charlie, definitely.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Man. Come on. Big man Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. I've got T in the building. Of course, we're going to react to Manchester City against Arsenal, where, unlike both teams, it was a 0-0 draw. Before we get into it, how you doing, my broski? Good. I think you're muted, bro.
Hey, amateur ting there. My apologies.
Minor.
I'm all good though, my bro. Happy bank holiday weekend to yourself.
Right,
and
back at
thanks
you,
for inviting me back on.
Minor, man. Again, it's you know, we've been through the trenches both as Arsenal fans. A lot of the time when I've had you on my channel, we've had nothing to scream and celebrate about. Now, people and the critics will say, oh, you're celebrating the draw, and we might be doing that if it was on the other foot. But before we get into the nitty and gritty of the game, I wanted to ask you, do you think we set up to win or not to lose?
I definitely think we set up to win. I don't think the game went in the way that we wanted it to for large periods of that game. But I think the way Arsenal and Arteta have been set up this season is to go into every game to win. We were cautious of Manchester City's threats and the areas that they could cause us problems. And I believe that Arteta and this team are very organised and they're very set up for every outcome that could happen in the game, whatever part of the pitch that they're in, the threats that they have, the best way to nullify them, and how the areas that we want to shepherd them to. I think we could kind of see that from the very beginning of the game. And I think Manchester City were also set up in a quite cautious way too, in terms of how they built up. Even if you have a look at like goal kicks, even DG, like they had a lot of players back. They added Kovacic towards their back line to help them build up, to give them that extra man, because they were concerned about Arsenal's press. And we were concerned about their wide players, hence why Saka and Jesus had to cover a lot of ground in that. But yeah, man, definitely thought that we set up to try and win the game and attack City and cause them issues. But I thought it was two very well drilled sides with, you know, I was surprised with City defensively, because I've been on here talking to you and to Ash and the other guys as well, saying that, you know, this is Man City are fallible defensively. They have weaknesses out in those wide areas, but I thought they managed that very well. And there was a few issues with Arsenal that I'm sure we'll get into going forward, but very well set up, and we'll talk about the defense at some point.
I mean, I'm with you, man. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, they always say, you know, attack wins games, defense wins titles. I don't think we get enough credit as a football team for being one of the, if not the best defensive units. And that, obviously, Benjamin White, great game. The two centre-backs, great game. Kirill left with, you know, some face to save. Tomiyasu came on and impacted. Naturally, Raya's kicking was a bit shaky, but generally, he did all right. Naturally, going to focus on the defense. But as you said there, Saka, Jesus, which we'll definitely get onto, they put in a shift. And I think if you can't win, don't lose, and that's what we did. And I think when you listen to what Mikel Arteta and Odegaard said, they're kind of, and Saliba actually, they're kind of disappointed to not get anything more from the game. As you said, I think both teams kind of cancelled each other out, which has been the theme of probably the last couple of games against Manchester City. I think both teams were cancelled out. I think it was a bit of a chess match. I think we did all right, man. I think our lower mid block was superb. I think our shape was great. I think we sustained pressure for a large period of the game. Obviously, naturally, you know, I don't think City were at their sparkling best. I do think there was elements of flatness with us, probably because of the international break, but generally we did all right. In terms of improvements, naturally the half chances we had, you want to see them go in, probably create more. And I don't know about you, but it felt like, for me anyways, in the second half, there was occasions, it's like, not that we were lacking belief, but it's like we believed, we was gambling a bit more. We was, the press was a lot more coordinated than the first half, and we was winning the ball higher up the field. I would say though, I think the first 20 minutes, our passing, I think Raya and Saliba's passing was a bit shaky, but other than that, they got the nerves out, if there was that, and there's going to be that psychological thing. So while it's disappointing to, you know, be in a title race and not win at the Etihad and not win at Anfield, we got 4 points of City. We've kept 2 clean sheets. Like, that's almost unheard of. And it's shown that Mikel Arteta has a plan B. What do you think of Mikel Arteta's alleged plan B, really? Because I think people sit here and say, oh, Arsenal, we parked the bus and this, that, and the other. And that's cool if we did. If we went gunshot for gunshot and toe-to-toe with them, which we've done, it might have been peak. And I'm not being funny. 9 times out of 10, every week, Arsenal fans complain about having to play lower mid-blocks. And I always sit here and say, why would a team set up to enhance your strengths? It doesn't make sense. But what's your thoughts on that?
Exactly that. What, like, we're used to seeing Arsenal open up Nyash in these types of games over the years.
Exactly, bro.
Let teams run through us and have a party, and that's what the rival fans and the critics online have been talking about and complaining about and saying, oh, Arsenal can't implement their own style. Hang on, why isn't this our style? And then I've seen other Arsenal fans saying, oh, this isn't the Arsenal that we knew, you know, Arsene Wenger and those. Hang on, we have a history before Arsene Wenger of being very strong defensively. 1-0 to
War in Arsenal.
Where do you think that chant came from? It didn't spawn out of nowhere. So Arsenal have built their foundations on a very strong defense. And even in our most successful period under Arsene Wenger, we had a strong defense. In our invincible season, we had a draws in that game, in that season too. So, yeah, we have got the best defense in the league. We're going to use our strengths and make sure that they're protected, and they're protected well. The wingers did a very good job in that. Declan Rice, and we'll spend some time speaking about him too. I have no issue with the plan B, and this is why, again, I've been on here, and I think, and when you've said which one do you want to win, the Premier League or the Champions League, of course, I want to win the Champions League, but that's also the competition I feel that we're most suited to win right now, because over 2 legs. Have a look at the results that we got. We got 4 points out of 6 against these types of teams, but we're able to sit in our low block. If we take those are fine margins in that competition, and it's usually the best defenses that tend to do well in that. So I was very impressed with how we managed those certain situations in the game. We're able to suffer, we're able to go through those periods and also pose a threat ourselves. We probably had the more dangerous situations in the game, but there was plenty of scenarios where we didn't even get shots off, which I thought we could have done better if we were a little bit more sharper. If we didn't have players come in left, right, and centre from the international break, and we were able to get our fluidity back, I think that we would have been able to generate even more and better chances. But limiting Manchester City to 1 shot on target at their place, it's no mean feat, man. And they've only had 2 shots on target against us this season. And DG, both of them came from corners.
Exactly.
From Ake headers. I think it was Vardiel actually in the first game at the Emirates, but Ake with that chance there, which is their best chance of the game. So, yes, I'm proud of this Arsenal team, and yeah, definitely areas that we can improve on, and then think that we've learned a lot from this game too, in terms of where we need to reinforce in the summer, because we didn't quite have the speed that, you know, the likes of Man United, when they've gone there and caused them threats. They didn't win the game, but Rashford speed, Garnacho with Chelsea, with they had Sterling out on that side, because we didn't quite have a fully fit Bukayo Saka, which was clear to see. And it's not that I think he was carrying an injury. I mean, I think it's because he hasn't trained. That's what Arteta said post-game as well. He only trained once in 2 weeks overall, so that's why he wasn't at his peak physical best. And
needs to change his boots as well, man. He's falling on the floor way too much yesterday. Raya as well, if I'm honest.
Hey, exactly. And there was Gunnar Lee speaking there.
We'll get on to Lee. That's why his comments staying there, man. Let's carry on, bro. Don't worry. I don't know what he wants us to speak on, but carry on, bro.
But yeah, we are looking at this side now, and there's only little tweaks. And we've got to be very careful in terms of who we bring in as well, because they've got to be someone that can give us something different, but also raise the level, because we can't take passengers in this team. We're not able to do what Man City do, spend 50 million on Calvin Phillips and just dash him over there. No, we have to make it work. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer in that sense. But before the summer even gets there, the likes of Martinelli, they hold the keys to our success.
I'm with you in the sense of, like, the defensive performance gives me a lot of confidence. If you go to Bayern Munich away, Real Madrid away, City in the Champions League, etc., etc., I still believe we're more likely to win the Prem. I still think there's some psychological hurdles, but we're doing our thing, man. And I think, like you said there, the next step is probably to get a bit more speedsters, maybe someone with a bit more individual brilliance in the final third that could take one of those chances, even though we had enough to win it. You know, Trossard, Gabriel Jesus had a couple. You know, Saka, as poor as I think he was by his own standards, he tried to find Kai Havertz / Jesus, and we couldn't find them. On another day, we're kind of running away with it. But I do think it gives me confidence, because for a while, indirectly under Mikel Arteta, but generally at this club, we had to be up here to get something, or we're going to be crap. There was no in between, and we've picked up some results without necessarily being amazing. Take nothing away from us. I think our shape, our structure, whether we wanted to play like that or not, when we crossed the line and that it became apparent that's the game, I think we reacted well. Let's go over what Lee is saying. Lee is saying, speak on Raya. Both of you must answer for your crimes. I'm not being funny, but I'm just going to pull it out there. Raya's been part of the team that's had 10 clean sheets, Lee. I don't know what you want us to say on Raya. His kicking initially was a bit shaky, but he came up trumps, man, and our defense has been doing his thing. We got Ramsdale, but I don't know, right? Lee, what do you want us to say on Raya? Maybe T knows more. I don't know what he wants us to say. Like,
hey, he's still yet to win over Raya for some reason. I've seen him make a few turns on, you know, Kai Havertz.
Ramsdale's not going to shag you, mate. Let it go, man.
But yeah, man, David Raya is he was kicking really, and you saw him change his boots in the second half. I think City did well in terms of pressing him and forcing him to his left side, because they know that kicking is a weapon. And we did go long a lot, and I thought we would do with Kai Havertz up top. But yeah, man, I thought City defended that well. They won the second balls. There was a stat going on Twitter the other day about how good Arsenal are winning the second balls, the best in the league. And you know, DG playing Sunday League. How many times have you heard second ball?
Second balls first, seconds. The second ball is the most important ball to win, I believe, in football, because you've always got to premeditate where that ball's going to land. And actually, like, if I'm in the middle of the pot, let's just say I'm a left back, the play's on the right hand side, the second ball might be about to affect me. If I switch off, I'm in problems. So you're bang on the money there, man.
And that's how you're able to build momentum, sustain attacks. And I thought City won those battles, to be fair to them. So yeah, credit to them, and that's probably why we didn't see the best of Raya in that sense. But hey, Raya didn't have anything to do thanks to his defense, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be praising him at some point before the season ends.
This is it. And I don't think it's a game where everyone was amazing individually. Like, obviously, because of the way the dynamics was, filled with praise with Saliba and Gabriel. I think Saliba's getting a bit more credit than he should in comparison to Gabriel, but quality. I think Benjamin White, obviously, he's not directly up against Haaland, so he's not going to get praise. But I actually think, like I said, the first 20, 30, he was like watching the game again. We was playing well, but that was the most intriguing one for me. I think Benjamin White was quite good, and for a large part, he was actually an outlet. Like, he put a couple of crosses in that were decent, really. But it comes down to the attack. I think the Mikel Arteta was spot on with bringing off Jorginho when he did, and actually starting him and bringing on Partey. A lot of people say Mikel Arteta, you know, we've had a lot of question marks over his subs. I think he was very proactive with that. I think Kirill got twisted up a couple of times against Bernardo Silva. That's going to happen, but he came out strong, and it's just testament to the squad. What did you make of Gabriel Jesus? Because he's becoming public enemy number one. Now, for me personally, I get it. You know, he likes to do this jinky stuff where you want him to score. I actually think he put in a shift defensively. I think he, you know, if it's not Saliba, Gabriel, Benjamin White, I don't feel there's really much praise you could, Declan Rice as well, much praise you can give anyone. I think Gabriel Jesus did all right. He still looks quite rusty, but I think he played all right defensively and put in a shift, like what you said with him and Saka. But where are you at with Jesus?
Yeah, I do think the criticism of Gabriel Jesus' performance was a bit overblown, DG, to be quite honest with you, because the chances he had, the first one, let's talk about that. The first chance he had was a half chance initially. I think City blocked off the other side to the goal, so the only option was to go through that near post, and it went just wide. It's a difficult opportunity. It couldn't take it. That's fine, move on. Then the second opportunity he had was where people were kind of making a meme of him online for taking quite a few touches. But look at the amount of bodies that City had in between that. And he did well to generate a shot from that situation. I know it got blocked, but there was so many bodies City had back, and City made sure they weren't as vulnerable in the transition as we've seen in previous games they've had. And then the other one where he had the shot just wide when he pulled it with his left foot again. I thought that was excellent striking play in terms of generating the space, shifting it from his right to his left and getting a shot off. And yeah, Gabriel Jesus isn't the most clinical finishers, and I've had more criticism for him for his misses in the Tottenham game, for example, against West Ham. But I thought he was decent in that aspect, and I think the criticism on his game was a little bit overblown. And I think what we tend to do as Arsenal fans sometimes is that we carry our our subconscious bias in terms of our
Yep.
thoughts. We know Jesus isn't a clinical finisher. So when he does have a chance and it doesn't go in, you're thinking, that's what Gabriel Jesus is. We need a clinical striker. We need someone who's going to do better. But I don't think anyone does better in those situations, to be honest with you. And even the likes of Erling Haaland, he couldn't even get a shot off on goal when he should have in a situation like that. So it's fine margins, yeah, but I don't think any of them were real clear-cut chances. And DG, me and you have been on here as well when we've had the others on here, and they've been very want to sing Kivio's praises. But I thought Gabriel Jesus did him a solid in that first half. I think the first moment we saw it, and I want to know how you felt about it when Bernardo Silva had a little nutmeg on Kivio, got beyond him. Gabriel Jesus had to make the foul. That was looking at opening 10 minutes. I was worried from then on in, but I thought Kivio grew into the game. But that's thanks to Gabriel Jesus giving him that support, helping him, doubling up on Bernardo Silva, who's a tricky customer. And you know how we can and work in tight spaces. I thought Jesus was very diligent in his press and gave us an outlet. And the fact that he had those chances and he substitute, I think, when we talk about Trossard, again, someone who you've been very not critical of, but someone you've been like, okay, I know his standard, I know his level, I know what he is for us, and I've been praising him very highly. I thought he had the better chance for us in the game to do something.
I thought we were going to do it.
Like,
when the chance you're talking about, I thought we was going to do it. I genuinely thought we was going to do it. I genuinely thought, you know what, Trossard's going to find him, or he's going to pull it in the back of the net. I thought, yep, I've seen this movie before, but I just think it's a thing. Like, I think these fine margins are more highlighted because we haven't historically created the chances we had, and it weren't a game like that. I would say the one biggest crime with Gabriel Jesus, and it's testament to how we all played, is Haaland's going under the radar. Like, cool, we can say Jesus should have scored in that, but Haaland's a better striker than him and whatnot, and we never saw him. And even Kevin De Bruyne, I feel Foden, specifically Kevin De Bruyne and Rodri, I think, you know, Rodri played quite well, but a lot of what was said in the game at the Emirates versus what we saw yesterday was, when they're back, they're going to make things happen. And to a degree, I believe that. I believe at the Emirates, a lot was said about Rodri, and you can see what he gives that team, but they needed Kevin De Bruyne. With no disrespect to Haaland, he's a service-reliant striker. You don't bring him into the game, he's irrelevant. So Mikel Arteta and the players implemented a game plan that obviously stifled Haaland, which we've done 3 times now, and mitigated against, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne or Kovacic, as you said, operating as a left-sided centre-back and things like that. Going back to what I said about improvements, that would, if I'm really harsh, it was them kind of moments. Like, Kovacic was faultless on the ball, but there was one time where he kind of lost it, and I wanted to see us exploit that. The only thing I could say in terms of improvement, naturally, I'd want to see us create more and take one of these half chances, because I do believe the only winners from this weekend are Liverpool, because they got 3 points. Obviously, in a sense, Arsenal and City both lost, and we just have to go marching on. I'm not going to lie, though. I am starting to believe we won't lose a game this season. Like, I'm getting excited, at least where the Premier League's concerned. It feels like something's in the air, man. Do you think we have City's number now? Because it's been 3 games. I know it's somewhat disrespectful, and again, the jury's out, but we found a way 3 times now.
You've got to look at it like that, and the fact that we've limited City in those 3 games to very little in there. So I think that Pep Guardiola has shown us a lot of respect across these 3 games. I've spoken about City's vulnerability defensively and how they it's kind of like they compromise with that. They're like, okay, we'll have our moments where we let the opposition go against us and give them a few counter attacks, but that's because we know that we're going to generate chances. We know that we're going to eventually score, break them down mentally and with our quality. But against Arsenal, they're a lot more conservative in their decisions, in not taking those risks. Even Kevin De Bruyne, that is their risk taker, their creator, had a few opportunities to get the ball in, cross it into the box, but you saw the hesitation. You saw him, no, I'm going to play the safe option. Even when at the end of the game, Pep Guardiola was lamenting Jack Grealish, try and play that ball through in behind the defense.
£100 million man.
Exactly right there. And he's making, no, I'm taking the extra touch and I'm going to play it, because if I give this away, Arsenal can cause me problems on the transition. There is a lot of respect in that. The build-up phase, as I spoke about, the mid-block, how they were ready to set up and get 4 defenders back. They don't usually play with that. They usually have Kyle Walker. In this season, we've seen a lot. Kyle Walker provide the width. They have the 3 and 1 in front, whereas no, they had the 2, having Kovacic into that side. They didn't play Kovacic at Anfield initially until they brought him on when they realized they were under siege.
Another big
There's a
game
lot of
Kevin De
respect.
Bruyne had to get subbed against. I'm just throwing it out there. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just
There
saying.
you go. There's a lot of respect for us right now in terms of what we can do. And I think we can, there's levels for us to go. Of course, Man City can, and they always have that luxury in the summer as well. But we're seeing the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. He's not having the same impact as he did against us. And I think that's because of the physical decline that he's had. Arsenal, we're still got gears to go. I think that's a big plus for us mentally to go away to Man City and have that belief that we can shut them down. Now, the next time that we do go there, whether it's this season, DG, or in the next season, we'll have that confidence that we can, okay, now we know what we need to do in those defensive situations. Let's look to where we can hurt them. So, yeah, I do think we do kind of have their number right now from this season.
I think the next step, as you kind of alluded to, is like, you know, we've had a good performance at Anfield. Now it's about winning at Anfield, winning at the Etihad, winning at these grounds and things. And as somebody said, you know, Man United away does scare me. On paper, we should be mopping the floor with Man United. But sometimes in football, you drop to the team's level. And obviously, Old Trafford, Shite Hart Lane, these are grounds that I've seen my team in my 28 years grow up and win league titles, but we've been a bit shaky there. But we've got it all to do. I think we shouldn't be complacent, but we should be confident. And one thing I like above everything in the Etihad game versus a year ago, I know the dynamics were slightly different, but there was just some belief. It's like we believe that, okay, we respect City. They've gone on the path we wish to go on, but we've got problems as well. We can create problems. I didn't answer your question about Kyrgios. I forgot to mention, but yeah, I think Kyrgios did all right. I thought you're going to be someone that they're going to try and target. I think you did all right. You know, I'm not going to get at you for Bernardo Silva nutmegging you. You're not going to be the first or the last. You're going to, I call that losing a battle but winning the war. And you rightly said Gabriel Jesus had to play. You know, if Martinelli's not really fit, then Gabriel Jesus, it being experienced, needing a chance, needing him in these moments. I wanted Jesus to start before the game, so I understood that. I praised Trossard for doing exactly that, helping Kyrgios out against Porto. So I would have been cool with whoever went out there. I would have loved for it to have been Martinelli. Clearly, the man wasn't fit, and I love the sense that, you know, Kyrgios, look, you know, if Kyrgios was thrown in last season, he might have struggled, but he's got his run of form. He's been able to ride the collective confidence, and he's doing his thing, and it's nice to see. And it's also nice that Mikel Arteta brought on Tomiyasu and Partey, and I guess you could extend that to Martinelli. The injured boys are starting to get fit. We are getting to that period in the season where I know on paper the team's picking itself, but Arteta is probably going to have to be a bit cute and clever, and, you know, with the greatest of respect to Luton, for example, and we need to win that game off the basis of we've dropped 2 points. I do think that's an opportunity to not make mass changes, but maybe if that's where you was considering a Jesus, a Thomas Partey, a Tomiyasu start, I think these are the games you've got to kind of do. How do you feel about the running then? I'm going to ask you this every time you're on my platform, man. But yeah, as I said, Liverpool were the winners of the weekend because us two teams dropped points. We've got Luton, Brighton, Villa, Wolves, Chelsea, Spurs, Bournemouth, United, Everton. City go on to Aston Villa, Emre's Aston Villa, which I think they'll wipe the floor with them. They've got Crystal Palace, Luton, Brighton, Forest, Wolves, Fulham, West Ham and Spurs. Liverpool, who are top of the table, have Sheffield United, Man United, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Everton, West Ham, Spurs, Villa and Wolves. Where are you at with that? I can't lie, I didn't know that Liverpool had that many away games. You hope that there could be some twists and turns. But where are you at with this, man? It's all to play for.
There's pros and cons within all, I believe. With Liverpool, you can look at them and think they've got the Europa League fixtures, so they can afford to make changes and not really worry about getting knocked out in that competition. Alongside those, the Sheffield United at home, we've both got the two teams in the relegation zone at the moment at home, so it's not a bad time to play these teams off the back of a tough weekend game so that we can have room to make those changes and still expect to have a high level of performance enough to win those games. I think with Liverpool, the cons with them, though, is, as you said right there, DG, the away games, the amount of away games that they've got in consecutive fixtures. And then you've also got to add into that the games in the Europa League that will be in those scenarios. And with Liverpool, away from home is where you show you real who you really are, I believe. And that's where your weaknesses will show away from home and your strengths will also be there. I think Liverpool going away to Fulham is a tricky place. I mean, if we don't win the league, I think we'll be speaking about our games against Fulham as being the issue. We can't speak about Liverpool and Man City. It's the games against Fulham, the points that we dropped in that. Everton away, they don't have a good record in there and winning those games. West Ham away, who knows what type of
Come
West
on,
Ham
Moise.
team you're going to get. Exactly. Who knows? That you never really quite know, but you know the threat that they have on the counter-attack. Jared Bowen, Paqueta, Kudus, Antonio's back fit now. And you know, with Liverpool, that's where you can probably hurt them in those situations. And then they've also got Manchester United. You never, similar to West Ham, you don't know what Manchester United team you're going to get in that. And you might get the one that played against Brentford, or you might get the one that played them in the FA Cup. With Man City, have a look at their fixtures, the pros that they've got. I think they've got the easiest in terms of the teams that they're going to be facing. They've got a few mid-table teams in there. And the timing of when they play Fulham might be on the beach already at that point. Wolves, who knows what situation they're going to be. West Ham even as well. And yeah, having those tougher fixtures at home, like your Aston Villas, your Wolves and your West Hams, I think that's a benefit to them. But going away to Crystal Palace, they have struggled in a few occasions there. I know they won there last season from a penalty given away by Elise, but they don't have a good record against Palace, and Palace getting Eze, Elise back fit, I think that could be good timing for them. And Brighton away is there other tricky fixture alongside Spurs as well, of course, which is we're yet to find out when that date is going to be confirmed with that. So tough games, but for us, we've got the toughest ones. And I think we know that, and Arsenal fans traveling away to Old Trafford, going to, as you said, Shot Hart Lane, and in those games, they're going to be very emotional for the fans, and it's going to be for the players. How are you going to impose yourself? Because we have to win now. I know because we drew, and we're happy with the draw. We're satisfied with the draw against Man City, but that means that we have to go to these places and win.
In fact, you can't see where you could lose. Like, you can't see where you could drop points. Where, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But you look at our fixtures, you know, it would be, I do think we're getting into that scenario now where the games that you think should be a walkover, they're actually the ones that are crazy. And as you said, with the 2 games against Fulham, we shot ourselves in the back. I know you can't win every game, but I can't help but think about, I won't quite say Anfield because we drew, but it was dropped from winning positions. But if you're asking me, I would say obviously the turn at the end of the year where you had the West Hams, you know, the Newcastles, the Aston Villas, Fulhams, etc., etc. I do think about 2 games that we have to play in Spurs and Chelsea, because I do think Declan Rice has been a revelation for us and in big games, and Jorginho's been great. But I think that, you know, the one game Declan Rice in a big game couldn't play the whole game. He came off against Spurs. We shot ourselves in the foot. On top of that, we didn't take our chances, like what you said with Gabriel Jesus. Chelsea, we weren't in it for an hour. So I would look back. On paper,
I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question now.
Go on.
About Man City. Do you think their injuries that they're starting to pick up in their back line, do you think that's going to affect them in any of these games? Do you think that could, I don't know, because against Arsenal, it's a little bit different. It's a big game. You have to rise to the occasion. They're going to be a little bit more vulnerable against these types of opposition because they're just of lesser quality. And we could be seeing Rico Lewis be playing in those games up against.
He's only started 5 games as well in the Prem this year as well. So when it gets to the business, and that Rico Lewis he doesn't really play like that.
Doesn't have a track record to show for it. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Man City could even potentially drop more points than we even think?
By God's grace, they do, innit? Really and truly. Do you know what it is? I've still got the Man City being City, Pep Guardiola in the back of my mind. It's not allowing me to see what potentially could happen. I'm still waiting on that run. Of course, naturally, the injuries, couple of players losing rhythm. Maybe I do think I don't think the players don't want to win stuff and the manager the same. But I think when you've hit the footballing pinnacle of a treble, the only thing better, quadruple, it's very hard to replicate that, especially where I know they brought in signings in the summer, but it weren't really the aggressive changes. Like you look at Sir Alex Ferguson, he was a big fan, Pep as well, but he was a big fan of when they've reached the pinnacle to freshen things up, to not allow complacency. And it does feel like that. I do think there's vulnerabilities in them, but I just can't look beyond City. I'm still waiting on them to just go on the mad run. Liverpool, my only hope is they drop points away from home. Nobody wants to go to Anfield. Why would you want to go to Anfield in Klopp's last season and whatnot? So it's very difficult. I think they'll bot Man United, if I'm honest with you. You know, Man United have the chance to spoil Arsenal's day and spoil Liverpool's season as well, and keep twerking for City like a lot of their fans keep doing. So I guess we're looking at them to do that. But I can't look. I think at Anfield they win everything. I think one thing that's giving me optimism, I didn't know how many games they have away from home. I expect them to beat Everton. I'm hopeful for Fulham. You know, I hope United could do us a favour. I expect them to win all their home games. I expect them to mop the floor with Spurs. Not really got too much hope on Aston Villa's Unai Emery because I think they're sat fourth. We know how it pans. I would love Emery to do it because Spurs are breathing down their necks, but we know how it gets with him in the league. So, yeah, you know what? I didn't believe it at first, but we probably do have the toughest fixtures. You know, Brighton are not exactly the Brighton side they have been, but you saw them give Liverpool some problems and they can give us issues. We've got to play Unai Emery. Wolves away is not going to be easy. Chelsea at home, we need to rise to the occasion because I think we weren't at it when we played them. Spurs, if we play to how we could play, it should be another year in a row we win. Bournemouth, I'm not going to lie, Bournemouth scares me because these are the games that I'm not going to lie, respectfully, Luton, to a degree, Chelsea, Bournemouth, we should be winning these games. United away is going to set the tempo for me, man, because we need to win at Old Trafford. Fair enough, decent performance at Anfield. We still didn't win. You know, Pep is still unbeaten at home at the Etihad against us. We still didn't win. I need us to get something at Old Trafford because they do have the potential to spoil people's day. And when you listen to Eric Ten Hag, he hasn't got over August or September whenever we played them. He's still using it as an excuse. So we've got it all to do, man. That is a bit harsh in that we've been great for 2 years now and we still haven't done it. And big up American Gunner because it ties into what I was going to ask you. He said Liverpool has to lose points for us to win it. What's the game you think Liverpool could stumble? What do you believe?
It's those away games, I believe, as well. Also Crystal Palace at home. I remember Crystal Palace having a decent little run against them at Anfield. I think they drew with them last season. Was it when Darwin Núñez got sent off for headbutting Joachim Andersen? Crystal Palace aren't going to be easy opposition. I'm actually quite glad we're not playing them because of the way Glasner's got them set up. Even in games that they've lost against Spurs, they were quite impressive defensively until errors crept into their game. They've always got the threats of Elise, Eze, who could easily play for top six teams at European clubs. And they've got a solid team in that aspect. And Glasner's doing a pretty good job so far in his early days there. Man United, the away games, as I said, and potentially Spurs. That could be, if that turns into a basketball game, which I think it will be, that's where Spurs are also in their element and they can be a tricky opposition. So, yeah, I think Liverpool are more fallible in their running than Man City. But the only thing I look at with Man City is those injuries that they're starting to pick up in areas. Cluster injuries. I think they're the worst. You can have injuries if they're spread across, you can usually manage with it fine because the top teams,
August, really,
the top three, exactly. The top three teams tend to have a little bit of depth in every position, but when you have them in one area, so they're down to their third choice right back, let's say, and John, and who knows the fitness of John Stones, and Nathan Ake went down injured as well now, so they've lost two centre backs in that aspect.
Important figures in their team as well.
Exactly, the experience, DG, not just their quality, but the experience that they have. We spoke, I think, who was it? MC40 put it in the chat. City losing Mahrez and Gundogan, but having those players out injured as well when the going gets tough, when it is a difficult away ground, you might be under the cosh a little bit against Brighton.
That's true.
Or at Crystal Palace. How are you going to react? How are you going to deal with those situations? Of course, they've still got a lot of experience within that team, but the defense is their weakest area of what we've seen from them this season. So the other benefit I think that we've got from Arsenal is that we're playing home and away, so it's quite consistent. We know we don't have to go on a big stretch of away games, which we had to do in sort of December time, and that was quite difficult for us. And I think that was a reason why we kind of dipped in form. But DG, for us, if we're going to go and be successful in the Champions League or in the Premier League, rotation is going to be important. That's my biggest area of criticism for Mikel Arteta and what we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen him be able to use his squads deep enough and really and trust those players that aren't getting too many minutes, but you go out there and make an impact. Yesterday was refreshing to see Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey be able to come on and react to Man City's changes when they brought on Docker and Grealish. Jorginho was probably having his worst game we've seen for a while. Then you bring on Thomas Partey, who looked a lot sharper in possession than what we've seen in the previous games. Hopefully these players are getting back, reaching their peak, and we can start to rotate a little bit more. And my final thing on rotation is because those wide areas, they hold the key to our season. Martinelli needs to get back fit. We need to get him firing. And Bukayo Saka, as you saw yesterday, we can't play him every game. We're not going to be able to play him every game 3 times a week. We're going to be able to, whether you might start him in a lot of those games, we're going to have to give ourselves enough of an advantage, take him off, rest him up. Let's get him ready for the next game, because that's the area of the pitch where we lack the most depth.
I think the only thing with Liverpool and City is, I think experience can be overrated, but it can't be understated. I think in this running, they've been here, done it. Their managers as well. The large majority of our players haven't. Yes, Jesus has won 4 Premier League titles, and probably by default, Zinchenko the same. Jorginho's been about. Rice has won a European trophy. There's experience. Kai Havertz as well as one stuff, but I think that goes against us. I do agree with what you're saying about rotation, because I always mention Mikel Arteta saying it's the finish. We've got the finished squad. But playing devil's advocate, do you think that's a bit of a harsh comment on Mikel Arteta? Because if life was fair, we'd all have a lot less. If we use that analogy with football, could we argue we'd have less points? And to a degree, in previous years or previous managers, they might have said Thomas Partey in for Jorginho, Kyrgios on the bench, etc. And a lot of players have been given an opportunity and they've used it. So is that necessarily fair? Your rotation comment on Mikel?
In areas, I hear it when we look at our defense. When we look at that, we don't have the numbers in that part of the pitch. But when you look within that midfield area with the likes of Fabio Vieira, Emil Smith-Rowe, that can have impacts going off the bench. You can even move him towards the forward line if necessary. Trossard, we've seen his impact that he can have for us. We've given Reece Nelson a contract, and we kept him when we could have let him go on a free. I think no matter what happens, that's a good business decision, because we're going to sell him and we'll make some money. And for PSR, that's going to be massively important for the summer. But you wanted to keep him. You said that you obviously convinced the player that there was going to be opportunities for you. Now let's see the trust in these for certain games. Liverpool had a ridiculous injury crisis where young players were stepping up.
A couple kids have come into the scene now, yeah.
Yeah, and Connor Bradley's made his name from that situation there. Man City, when they've had injuries, when Haaland wasn't there for most of the season, Julian Alvarez stepped up, and then
that Bob guy as well.
Exactly. And Phil Foden's really taken the mantle for them this season. So we're gonna have to look at these players, and now that they're back fit and available, they're going to have massive parts to play. Zinchenko is going to be a big part. We didn't even see.
People don't want to hear that, but facts.
He's going to be massive in these games against Luton, where we're going to have to break them down. Even thinking about it, like, we're going to have to bring him on in games away from home, whether it is at White Hart Lane or Old Trafford, where we're going to have a bit of personality on the pitch, and someone who says, no, I'm going to put my foot on the ball. I'm going to play that pass that breaks through the lines and then gets us going forward. We lacked a little bit of that on occasions. We know the deficiencies that we have with Zinchenko when he is in the team, back post defending, concentration at times, mainly. But he's a massive plus with us in possession, and we don't need to have a Jorginho in there. We don't necessarily need to double up, because Zinchenko can take 2 roles in that aspect. So massive opportunity for these players that have been on the fringes, that have struggled with injuries, yet to build up a run of consistency. But Oscar Bob, MC40, I completely forgot exactly with the winner that he scored at Newcastle. Yeah, massive opportunity for these fringe players to state their claim. And if we are having the trophy parade at the end of the season, do you know, at the end of the game where the players go one by one to collect their medal? Hopefully we're looking at them and saying, you didn't play much, but you had a massive part. You scored the winner. Reece Nelson, Bournemouth, Allah-esque.
I think you're right, man. And I think, like what I said at the start, I think it's got to that period where, again, it's an age-old thing. Because if Arteta made changes yesterday and we lost, then we're saying different things. So I don't think he can win. But you've got everyone. You signed them in August, or you had them in August, and you knew that they could be utilized. And I think across the last 2 seasons, whatever people say about Eddie Nketiah, you know, Eddie Nketiah had a key part to play when we beat City at the Emirates. And obviously, Zinchenko's had a part. Kyrill's come in. Whether you're playing 5 games or 38, every game paints a bit of the picture. So it is one where Arteta saying we've got one of the finished squads. He's got no choice but to be cute and clever. That doesn't necessarily mean people who start the game finish it, a bit like what you saw against City. But I think it is time to make rotations. And on one hand, I don't want any rotations against Luton because we have to get 3 points. The team's been picking itself. There's no easy games on paper. But naturally, you know, with us playing City, with, again, as somebody said, a couple of these boys have played a lot on the international break. We've got City, we've got a midweek game, and then you've got Brighton away, which isn't going to be easy. I do think you have to be cute and clever. Would you start Partey against Luton? And what changes, if any, would you make to the starting 11 better yet?
I would, looking at how Saka kind of ended the game, I would look to bring in Fabio Vieira in off the right, and put him on the right wing in that, to get him some minutes, not necessarily have him within the midfield where it can get quite congested, and get his legs going, and have Saka off the bench if we need to. Thomas Partey, you just mentioned him. I would look to start him as well, and get him involved in the game. And because we're going against Luton, you got to look at the task at hand. Very physical side, well organised. They're going to be hard to break down, and
nothing to lose as well. So fearless.
Exactly, nothing to lose because the fact that they're in the Premier League is a dream for them. They're going to look to try and cause us problems on the break. I think it'll be important to have Partey's athleticism in there if we can match that with Declan Rice in that midfield as well, and have him in there and give us that stability to work from. I would also Zinchenko coming in at left back for Jakub Kiwior. He's played a lot of minutes too. I think Arteta managed that really well. He was doing that. He kind of grew into the game, but he was like, I'm not waiting for you to make a mistake. Like sort of what's happened with Zinchenko at Anfield last season. We took him off a bit too late. If we took him off a second earlier, we'd be praising his defensive performance. But his timings was perfect, so we took him off yesterday. I'd bring in Zinchenko for that sort of game, and then what we've replaced with the loss, what we're getting in physicality with Kiwior, we've got that with Thomas Partey, so we haven't necessarily lost it in that aspect. And would I, if Martinelli's fit, I'd bring him into the side too. And then how many? That's what 4 changes that we've made, and I wouldn't expect us to be out there free flowing best, maybe scoring 5 or 6s, but as long as that's enough to win us the game, and we've still got the firepower to come off the bench if we need to, we could potentially have Saka on there, Trossard even, to go and make a difference, because the bench has been vital for us this season. Would you start? I'm going to ask you now, DG. Would you start Kai Havertz or Gabriel Jesus up top, or would you start?
I mean, my starting 11 from back to front. To be honest with you, I'll go front 3. I think Kai Havertz has to play, and I think he's quite durable. I think it's one where if the game goes how I want it to go, you can pull you off. We think about Brighton, but I would say from top to bottom, Kai Havertz through the middle. On the left, I'm going to persist with Gabriel Jesus. On the right, it's a toss-up between Reece Nelson and Trossard. I'm going to lean towards Trossard. In midfield, Martin Odegaard, no-brainer there. Declan Rice, no-brainer there. I would give Partey a start. Right back, Benjamin White, Gabriel, Saliba, Raya, you're in there. And I'll probably start Tomiyasu, you know. I'll start Tomiyasu just to get him some more minutes. Then I'd bring on Zinchenko at some point in the second half, if I'm honest. But again, like you said, if Zinchenko can't start in a game like this, and for us to have some confidence that he could do something in a game like this, then there's serious options, there's serious problems. I disagree with heavily rotation personally, Jonathan, just because I don't want it to take some fluidity out. And to be honest, if we do rotate heavily, that team should go out there and win. But when you haven't necessarily had the match rhythm, you know, we've seen Jesus in elements with that, Partey with elements, Tomiyasu with elements. When you make them wholesale changes, and Luton are probably going to play the same 11 they've been playing, it can have a knock-on effect. And I don't want it to be a game like Southampton, for example, where we kind of effed up, saved a bit of face at the end. Let's just run them into the wall, win the game, then give minutes. And again,
Yeah.
like you said with Kirill, he's played a lot of football. So we can't afford any injuries, man. We've got a lot of games in the Prem. They're coming thick and fast. We've got 2 vital games against Bayern Munich. I'm sure every Arsenal fan hopes that's not the end of our Champions League campaign. So it's going to be an issue. And I do agree Martinelli is key. But for Martinelli, or for me with Martinelli, it's how fit is he? Now, obviously, he's got a couple of minutes against City. The boys have probably traveled back to London today, Monday, recovery sessions and training sessions within the next 24 to 48 hours. I probably would. I expect to see Saka start, but it would be nice to see him just on the bench. Now, saying that, if we start and it goes left, I'm going to sit here and say, why didn't Bukayo Saka start? But I do think it's an opportunity for people, man. And to be honest with you, I think I said Trossard, Havertz, Jesus, Odegaard, Partey, Declan Rice, Benjamin White, Saliba, Gabriel, Raya, Tomiyasu, or you know, whether it's Nelson or Zinchenko, if there's not, or Fabio Vieira, as you said, if that's not enough to win the game, I don't know. But I just wouldn't start a Tomiyasu, a Partey, a Fabio Vieira, and all the others on the peripheral things together, because I think that will kill a bit of our rhythm and momentum. I won't say momentum is really relevant now because we've obviously, you know, the international break came, but momentum really. And sometimes you've got to play these players when they're on form. And I forgot about Smith Rowe. That tells you everything. Even a Smith Rowe, if he get him off the left, even, you know, Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, it could be the perfect opportunity. I just wouldn't want to see more than 2, 3 maximum, ideally 2 changes for me personally.
I agree. You mentioned about the fluidity, the cohesion that lacks when you make too many changes. You see it not just with Arsenal, you see it with Man City, even when they do it. With us, I think the best way we're going to rotate is by managing minutes rather than necessarily starts. Win the game early, wrap it up 3-0, 2-3-0 within 60 minutes, then you can make the substitutions, rest legs, and then that's 60 minutes within the tank, and then 30 minutes for someone else. That's the best way to do it. Watching Man City last season, as we capitulated, I watched them in a lot of games. Everton away, that was a game that we thought, oh, that could be where Man City dropped points. 3-0 within 50 minutes, done and dusted, move on. That's what Man City were able to do against West Ham, against the likes of Leeds and those teams there. I don't think it was Leeds, it was Leicester. 3-0 and it's done. Then you can concede your goal, have your rotation minutes on, and the game's done, dead and buried. That's what we need to do. Let's take the emotion out of it. Like Liverpool, they're top of the league. Fair play to them. But I've seen a lot of their games go to the wire, get stretched, and I think that will have an impact on them come the end of the season. Well, we are here at the business end, but there's a lot of energy taken out of it, a lot of emotion. I think that could hinder them. Let's kill it dead. That's why I wasn't complaining about the game when you're seeing a lot of people on social media saying, oh, this, that, the other. I don't want to go end to end and blow for blow and then get knocked out and have players out there pulling up with
smart.
Yeah, because we've got Luton. We got to go to Luton. We got to have players fit and available and energy for that. And they're not going to be a pushover. They're not going to roll down. And if we go out there and beat them, batter them, that's because of our own well-doing. Luton went to Liverpool. I know they lost 4-1 in the end, but they were in the driving seat for a lot of that. Tottenham, you saw it there, took a late winner from Heung-min Son. Even us, when we played them,
they make it, and more time it's them games. You know, you look at Luton, Brentford, of what they are this season, the 2 games against Fulham. It's these kind of games where we move a bit mad, or it's not plain sailing. Brentford at home as well, which I'm not criticizing it, but we had to graft and whatnot. So we can't sleep on them. The beautiful thing about football, as you know, you can't just look on paper, man.
Exactly. And that's how we have to approach it. The players will be looking at it a game at a time. As fans, we're going to be feeling it. And no matter what, whoever we could be playing Sheffield United and we'd still find ways to be worried people.
Exactly.
At this point.
We still ain't wholeheartedly believing yet. I can't lie, I wanted to ask you see the game yesterday. Now, I do think it's a bit harsh on our attackers because it became clear that if you can't win, don't lose. We're going to take it as it kind of comes, sort of thing. So I feel a bit harsh in where it's not a game where we're creating many chances to really sit here and blame my attackers. Of course, you could say you've got one chance, go and do it. But do you think yesterday highlighted the need for a striker?
I think it highlighted the need for a winger more than a striker, to be honest, DG, because a striker, have a look, Haaland's in that game. Haaland was a striker. He's the best striker in the league. He had no chances.
The world out and out 9, yeah.
Exactly. So the issue was if if we had a striker, would they have had anything? We didn't create anything for Kai Havertz in that scenario. There was not really a situation where you'd be like, oh, if a striker was in that situation, he'd be an option to play the ball in there. There wasn't really that. The space that City afforded to us was out wide. And
True.
I think I think I will be honest. I think that is more of a pressing need right now. Yes, we do need a striker, and Arsenal are looking at that. And yes, we do need one. I'd love us to sign one, but I also think that it's probably just as important to get a wide man out there too,
I don't
with
think you're
real
wrong.
speed and quality in the final third. Someone similar to a Martinelli, an inside forward. If Pedro Neto's hamstrings weren't so sharp, he would be perfect for us. Someone that can play on the right and the left, add a bit of creativity, speed, and who has improved in his goal output this season, but he whilst having a lot of injuries. That's the type of player we need. A Rafael Leao, someone who has the ability to score and
That
create.
Williams you as well from Bilbao has been linked with us.
Nico Williams, there you go. Both sides as well. Someone that can cover both. I think that's so important for us. And we talk about Arsenal and our identity and our makeup. That are some of our greatest players. We're wide forwards and not your typical number nines who just feed off chances like Haaland. Thierry Henry in today's game, he would be a wide foot. He would be a winger.
He would. That left hand side would be gravy for him, man. Or even if we had an Alexis Sanchez to say the modern day, or even a Bamian, a bit of a hybrid. I know he's a striker and he's not really good in terms of general play, but that left channel, he's still scoring goals from that angle for Marseille. I think you're bang on. And where you look at our failed pursuits at a time of a Rafinha or a Pedro Neto, or hindsight's a wonderful thing, but Mudryk, that is something, in my opinion, Arteta is earmarking and trying to do. And while we didn't buy these players for the money he's prepared to put down, fair enough. And I would like that. I would like another wide man. I'm starting to believe that we're going to sign someone of the Trossard ilk, maybe Trossard with pace, someone that can play as a striker, play on the left, play on the right. And I do agree, you go back to the December period where we were shot for confidence and Martinelli and Saka were still playing. You would, and actually Trossard, you were just thinking if there was a Pedro Neto or someone else that's levels or quote unquote better that could ease the burden, that would be great, man. I think we do need a striker, but I do think, because goals win games, but I do think once again, when you look at when Jesus, Havertz, and Trossard have played up there, none of them are clinical. And you look at the City game, it's all the other aspects Kai Havertz brings. Like he's been influential in the game without being given a chance to create or having to be clinical. So I think people need to consider that. But naturally, I think a central midfielder, a winger, a striker, maybe a couple of defensive bodies would significantly improve us. Obviously, we have to keep our eyes and ears open to what Ramsdale's doing. To kind of wrap this up, I wanted to ask you player ratings because people have been getting on to me about that. What would you give David Raya?
What's an average for you? Is it a 5 or a 6?
Average is a 5/6. There's no half ratings as well, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's just say a 6. A 6.
I'll give him a 6. I don't think he was terrible. I think his distribution could have been better. I actually think in the game it became apparent that we needed him to be like a centre back when we have the ball and get on it and play those short passings. I think he did that. I think him and Saka need to change their boots, but I think 6 fair. What would you give Kiwior?
Kiwior, out of the defense, is the weakest, but I think he grew into the game. If I'm giving David Raya a 6, and for some of the mistakes that he made, I'll give the same for Kiwior too. Tricky opponent in Bernardo Silva, who I thought Man City, if they should have taken advantage of that a little bit more and used him to go 1v1 a lot, but Arsenal didn't really let them go 1v1 because Gabriel Jesus defensively. But I thought Kiwior was very good at defending in the back post. There was one header that Haaland had in the first half where Kiwior was just there standing strong. If you can't win it, and again, you hear this a lot in Sunday League, if you can't win the header, just try and make it as difficult as possible for him. And that's exactly what he did in quite a few occasions. So yeah, I'll give a 6 for Kiwior.
I think a 6 is fair, man. I think like a lot of people have been saying, he got 120 minutes for Poland. He's been confident, man. You had a great game against Liverpool at the Emirates. You've done your thing at the Etihad. Ultimately, if you're not going to be a player that starts week in, week out, and you're a reliable squad player that fans can have confidence with, I'm all right. And also Mikel Arteta, because there was a time people would have looked at you crazy, myself included, if Kiwior was starting in a game like this. So he's doing his thing. I think a 6 is fair, man. So you got 6s for Raya, 6s for Kiwior. Benjamin White.
Oh, outstanding. I'm going to give him a 9. because not just what he did defensively, going forward, he was our outlet in that first half a lot. The chances that people are talking about for Gabriel Jesus, all created by Ben White and his runs down that right hand flank, locked up Foden. The people are talking to me about Foden as being better than Saka and whatnot. Foden got taken off, and he was like, I had to bring him off. Jack Grealish came on, and I thought Jack Grealish kind of looked on it. He looked ready, but Ben White was ready to lock him up, and no, he gave no joy, no change. He was brilliant for me. 9 for Ben White.
Yeah, I give Ben White a 9 as well. I think all the others kind of took a while to grow into the game. I think Benjamin White was kind of on it from start to finish, and long may it continue, Benjamin White. Where you at with Gabriel and Saliba? Now, for me, I give Gabriel a 10. I give Saliba a 9. I only mark down Saliba because of the passing, but that's it. Where you at with
You
them?
just literally stole my words. Exactly the same way of thinking, DG, because Gabriel was my man of the match because he had a lot more 1v1 duels with
His PR
Haaland.
is crap, man. He needs a lot more hype.
It's crazy. I couldn't believe it. Like the fact that Gary Neville was there, say Saliba and whatnot, says Gabriel was fantastic. Gabriel was man of the match. He was the one that was having a lot of duels with Haaland, gave him no joy. Of course, Saliba gave him no joy either for defensively. But I thought that Saliba was weak. It was weak in possession yesterday.
At the start, it was terrible, man.
He was kicking it out of play, giving it back to them. I thought that was an area that he could have really improved on, but defensively, can't fault him. So that DG spot on, man. And I was ready to say that because I thought if like how I'm hearing other people say, oh yeah, it was Saliba, yeah, man of the match. Nah, but he's spot on, bro.
It's like you said there, like, listen, we've got 2 of the best centre-backs in world football, let alone the Prem. We've got 2 great players that are scratching the surface, and they're coming into their own now. Like, Gabriel is now becoming even more of a leader, cutting out those bozo moments, which seem like they're a thing of the past. Saliba is still growing. The next step for both of them is to continue this and become key players for their countries. I like the fact that these men are on it in big games, and you heard Saliba post-game. I think Saliba was quality. The only thing I can say is your passing. If I'm waffling about your passing against Manchester City, where you're a defender, you've done all right. I just don't think Gabriel gets enough praise. Now, it's a fantastic partnership. One's getting tight, one's dropping off. Naturally, Gabriel's more the aggressor. But I think at times, like I look at this City game, I look at Porto to a degree, it's like Gabriel has just shown why at this moment he's the big brother. Just a little bit, he just put his arm around Saliba and just carry him through, which he should be doing. But, you know, to come out with City and keep a clean sheet across 2 games and actually be praising our defenders when our attackers, bit of a byproduct because of how we played, didn't do anything. This is what we mean by, you know, defenders win titles and strikers win games. If we can't win the game, leave with something. So I've got nothing but praise for our back 5. As you said, you know, I'd say Kiwior and Raya. By default, Raya, I'd say Kiwior out of the outfield players, probably a bit weaker than the others, but good performances all round. And, you know, to have Gabriel, Saliba and White like tied down under their contracts for their significant periods, especially Gabriel and White, because they're slightly older than Saliba, it is great. You marry a Timber in there, Tomiyasu stays fit, Zinchenko, depending on the games, Timber to come back. You bring in a defender or 2 in the summer. We're lit, if I'm honest. Where are you at with the midfield? Let's start with Jorginho.
Yeah, probably our worst player in that aspect because he was the role that he was given. He's someone in that team that's meant to give us the experience, the calmness in possession, get him try and generate attacks and spring counters for us. I didn't think we got him involved in the game quite a lot, and because it became a bit more of a mid to low block at points in that first half, and that's not his game. He was competent in that. So I'm willing to give Jorginho a 5, not necessarily because he was poor per se. It just wasn't, the game wasn't suited for him. The game didn't go in a way where Jorginho was able to make an impact in possession. So yeah, 5 I'd say for Jorginho.
I give him a 6, and only because when I watched the game again, I do think at times he was nonchalant with his passing. Like there was one time we intercepted the ball, he tried to clip it over someone, and it's falling to Haaland, but nothing came of it. I think Jorginho did all right, man. Like when I watched the game again and I saw how City were building up from the back and the pockets that Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne, and Bernardo Silva and Foden were getting into, I think Jorginho did something I don't advocate Jorginho in following your runners and stuff like that. I do think you did that to the best of your abilities. I do think you was quite quiet, and you know there's no Jorginho masterclass to waffle about. But I think you kind of did suit the game. I did think Partey was better, and this is why you need a squad. If I'm completely honest with you, I'll give Jorginho a 6, man. I'll give him a 6 if I'm honest, man. But there's not anything in between it. Like he did his thing, man. Shout out to Uncle Jorginho. Declan Rice.
Declan Rice, outstanding monster in that midfield, and so important. I've got, you know, again, if we're given the sense, I like to group Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White, and Rice in that game.
Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, fantastic. There was a few occasions where City were trying to spring counterattacks. Kevin De Bruyne mopping it up, slide tackling Rodri.
Rodri as well.
I think there was 4 occasions where Kevin De Bruyne found a little bit of space, but then Rice was there to dispossess him. Outstanding. And that's why you saw the difference when we played Man City last season at the Etihad. Of course, Rob Holding is a massive aspect as well. That's why I think why Saliba gets man of the match, because he's the direct replacement, and it was completely different.
Fran said we didn't miss Saliba. Huh.
Hey, tell me about it. They tried to gaslight us with that. That was ridiculous.
Crazy.
But Declan Rice's performance in that midfield, in the stopping the transitions, is exactly why Arteta calls him a lighthouse. A lighthouse in those situations where it's a bit dark, you get lost in that moment. He's the one who provides, hey, this is where I am. I'm going to get us that ball back, and we're going to get us going again and just take the sting out of it. Declan Rice, 9 for me.
I give him an 8. I give him an 8. Like I don't think you play to the level of Saliba, but I do think, considering our high line, you mocked. You know what? In fact, give him a 9, because there's an element of work that went unnoticed. Man, Declan Rice just doing Declan Rice things. A bit like
get a 10 if he could take corners.
Yeah, like with Benjamin White, Saliba, and Gabriel, it's just, you know what you lot are coming with. I hear you lot on the 8.5s. Me personally, I don't do half ratings, so you lot could do all of that. I'll give Declan Rice a 9. We signed him for 105 million, and I don't think there hasn't been a big game that he hasn't turned up in. At a push, I don't agree with it, but some might say Porto. He was there against Chelsea. He's been there twice against City now. He was defo there against Liverpool. He was there against Spurs. Or in fact, him coming off against Spurs correlated. You know, respectfully to Jorginho, I don't think Declan Rice makes that mistake, but he can make mistakes like everyone else. I'll give him a 9. So we got a 6 for Jorginho, a 9 for Declan Rice. Martin Odegaard.
Again, in possession, I thought it was quite poor. And yeah, there was when I spoke about some of the situations that I thought Arsenal got into. You mentioned when Kovacic like gave it away, it was like a loose pass. Odegaard could have done better in that situation for me. I think we had runners that were just a little bit behind him where he could have played it to them earlier, but he took one too many touches. But having said that, he's the one who he played the ball through into Trossard when Trossard should have squared it through, and we'd be talking
the Saka move for him to square it as well.
Exactly that. Yeah. So with Odegaard, I think his off the ball performance was very important in this game. That deserves a lot of praise. And he stopped one of the City counterattacks too when they tried to switch it out to Doku late towards the end. So I think you always know what you're going to get with Odegaard. I think you can't really go anywhere lower than a 6 for me. So I'll go 6 for Odegaard. Maybe I was a bit too harsh on Jorginho, but yeah, I'm going to go 6 for Martin Odegaard for that.
I'm going to give Odegaard a 7, man. I agree with you. On the ball, it weren't quite there. It was a bit so-so. But I give him a lot of credit for off the ball, really, especially that first half. So I give him a 7. So, yeah, there's not really much in it. Now we get into where it could potentially get interesting. Let's start with Bukayo Saka, man.
Bukayo Saka, start of the game, I thought Vardio had a really, really good job against him.
Defending him, man.
He locked him down. And then the start of the second half, though, DG, I thought that's where Saka looked at his best.
That's what I meant when we was pressing further up the field. It looked like, okay, Saka's awake now. We're about now.
Yeah, and we started to connect a little bit more. And he was very good, diligent defensively as well. You can't go any lower than a 6 for me, but it is a below par Saka game. And for someone that we have so much high expectations, he is on the big wages. He's on the the upper echelons in the Premier League for the highest.
He set the levels.
The levels are set now, so we have to accept it as fans when he's not quite at his best yet. He only trained once, but hey, Michael Jordan flu game. I know he's not the greatest of all time level, but he is one of our best players and one of our most important players. And if we are to become such a successful side that we all believe that we can be, you can have the one training session, but you still got to have a massive impact. So yeah, I'm gonna go 6 for me for Saka. 6.
I agree with you, man. I think, I cut him slack, because Saka, you're a big reason as to why we're here. Ultimately, you die by the high standards. I think you've lived by at the club because of what you're doing. And I hear it, you ain't been trained, you've had an injury, all of these things, they do play a part. But to me, as an ignorant fan, I'm not aware of what the medical staff are doing. I'm not at London Coley. I'm doing whatever I'm doing all week, and I'm watching Arsenal on TV. If you're fit enough to play, then there's some confidence that you can put in a certain level. Now, again, with the attackers, as we've said, it weren't really a game where we're creating massive chances or really saying much for an attacking sense. So I guess that kind of has to be an excuse. But I think Saka's probably the poorest player on the pitch. If I'm honest, I'll give him a 5, man. I don't think he's below a 5. I give him the 5 on the basis of you did whatever the team collective needed to do, but you do want a bit more. So I'll give Saka a 5, man. He did look a bit alive in the second half, but I think Saka was quite anonymous, if I'm honest with you, man. Like, obviously, because of how we played, we probably made Guardiola look better than he is, but I wanted Saka to ask questions of him because he hasn't exactly set the world alight in the Prem. So I'm going with a 5. You've got a 6. Where you at with Gabriel Jesus?
Oh, it's going to be interesting hearing
opinion, 100%.
With people's opinion, but we agreed in our assessment of him. I think it's a little bit too harsh, the criticism he got. He was a part of our creating some of our best chances in the first half. He was a threat. I'm going to give, I'm going to give him a 7 because of his defensive work too, helping Kivior down that and in that side, getting forward, being able to get shots off, generate. I'm giving 7 for me. Our best attacker, I think, make it make sense. Said it, but yeah, gone for an 8. But our best attacker by a mile, our biggest threat in the game. So I've gone a 7 for Gabriel Jesus.
I was going to give a 6, but you're making me think maybe I'm being harsh. I'm going to give him a 7. I think he put in a great defensive shift early in the first half, making those fouls. Yeah, you would have liked to have seen him take one of those chances, but for someone who hasn't been starting, dealing with injuries in a big game, I think he was very proactive. And, again, City, whatever City's doing is irrelevant to us, but a big talking point about Gabriel Jesus, at least this guy's turned up. What did Haaland do? Like, he had some half chances that he didn't take. I think Gabriel Jesus had a positive game, man. I think people are being very harsh, man. I would say 6, but because I think people are being harsh, I'm going to give him a 7. I do think 6, but I'm going to say 7. Kai Havertz, for me, you know what? I'd give him a 7. I think Havertz was good, Again, had nothing to work with, dropped into midfield. I think he had a really good game in the ugly aspects of the game. The only thing I'll criticize with Havertz, towards the end of the second half, there was a couple of times we're getting caught needlessly in possession, and he won the ball back on the edge of our area. He was trying to dribble, and his pocket got picked. Fortunately, Foden and Cole couldn't take advantage, but that could have been a lot worse, man.
Yeah, I think 7's kind of generous for Havertz.
That's harsh, man. Harsh, man. He's winning draws and all them things.
He was winning those duels, and I don't necessarily it was because of his fault. Again, I thought City did well winning those second balls, because even if he doesn't win the first ball, I don't mind. He's an option, he's an outlet for us to go long. Yeah, I would say 6. I agree with Neil. I would say a 6 just for that, because there wasn't anything that he generated in terms of chance.
That's true, but is he same level as, I know it's different roles, but same level, same rating as Jorginho? I thought he put himself around a lot more than Jorginho, respectfully to Jorginho, because I don't think he had a terrible game.
You're right. He was a lot more involved, and he did have a few more battles within there. But again, you're a striker, though. You're playing as the striker in this. Like, I expect more. We talk about Haaland and saying that they locked him up. They locked up Kai Havertz as well, to be honest with you. And he has looked a threat in previous games. So yeah, I feel like with our striker, with someone who's going to be an outlet, and we didn't relieve pressure that much. And again, it's not necessarily his fault.
Yeah, but then again, Raya's kicking was terrible though, so I have to allow Havertz a tiny bit, bro.
I hear you.
No, 6 is probably fair, man.
Yeah, fair dues. I'm not criticizing him in this game in terms of I expect much better of Havertz. No, it's just that the game couldn't quite go for him. We wasn't able to get.
It's not a game to be praising attackers 100%. It's not a game to be waffling about attackers, because there weren't a barrage of chances. It's that game, or I said it going into the City game I watch along. I think the last few City Arsenal games, it's a case where if it was a movie, the trailer's a lot better than the actual movie, if that makes sense. At least where the neutrals are concerned. Now I'm sure City and Arsenal fans agree. Nobody cares if they're entertained. People want us to be like Spurs, playing a high line and being naive in that regard. But I think think when you go into these games and, you know, Arteta and what he's doing, Pep and what he's doing, the technical and wonderful players, you'd think it'd be a spectacle, especially off how the Premier League's recommenced after the international break. But when you've actually watched these games, you know, in the game at Wembley and definitely at the Emirates, they've had beautiful endings or beautiful moments, but it's not exactly a great watch. They cancel each other out. It's low level stuff, kind of. So I think it was a bit of a boring game. So it isn't one to really waffle about the attackers. So what Raya said, you said 6, innit? I said 6 as well.
Yeah, 6. We went 6 for Raya Kiwior.
6 for Raya Kiwior. Well, Ben White got a 9 from me, as did Saliba. Gabriel a 10. Jorginho, we got 6. Odegaard, I gave him a 7. What did you give Odegaard?
I think I gave him a 6, but I'm happy. I'm happy to go to a 7 for that because he defended very well.
Exactly. Declan Rice a 9. Saka, you gave him a 6. I gave him a 5. I gave Havertz a 7. You gave him a 6. And I think we agreed on 7s for Gabriel Jesus. Where you at with the subs then? Like, I can't lie. I forgot that we made 4 subs. I thought we only had 3. What did you make of Thomas Partey?
I was impressed.
I think he had a good little cameo. Better than what he's been doing,
In possession, he gave us something, and I think he was also a part of the chance that Odegaard created for Trossard.
At the end with Trossard. Yeah, he was.
He was quite important in being in that release valve under pressure, able to calm it down in that scenario. I think Kevin De Bruyne got past him once. Maybe that's a bit of the frustration.
Yeah, I don't know why he tried to get in a foot race with Kevin. That was a myth.
Yeah,
but other than that, he was lit.
He tried to get in a foot race. Kevin beat him, and then Declan Rice was there to mop up again. But I think that, it was important for him to come on in that game, look a lot more sharper in possession, look to release Susan. He's going to be so important, DG, for us going forward. For us to go to White Hart Lane, for us to go to Old Trafford. We're going to need Champions League away to the Allianz, if we do progress from beyond there, whether it's at the Bernabeu or at the Etihad. He's going to be vital for the running. And we might be having a conversation about him next season because you know how football is. Things change. If he can prove his fitness from now to the end and then improving his performances, people will be like, Thomas Partey is always injured, but Thomas Partey's don't grow on trees. Like you don't get that level of quality when he's there, fit and available. So man, I thought it was solid. I'm going to give him if I've given Odegaard a 7, I'm going to go an 8. I'm
going an 8 for Partey, man. And I think us football fans, we can be a bit harsh. There's been times Jesus, Partey, Tomiyasu, these guys have come off the bench after being out for a while and they've looked a bit rusty naturally. And obviously there's been players carrying knocks. There's been points that, people would say that about Saka now, Benjamin White the same. I think we have to give grace. And also I praise Saliba because he's actually fasting, and Gabriel was actually allegedly a doubt going into this game and has been carrying a knock for a while. So shout out to them. Also Kiwior because he played a lot for Poland. I think Partey, for the cameo, I'll give you an 8. I think you played good. And one thing I liked is, I can't say Odegaard didn't turn up, but when Partey came on, it's like Odegaard became a bit more alive. He's gambling. He's like, you know what, Declan Rice and Partey, you lot mop up. I'm going to stay a bit further forward because he knows Partey's got the range to find him, probably on a more consistent basis than Declan Rice. So Partey, 8, I agree. Where are you at with Trossard?
With Trossard, again,
it's a weird one, isn't it?
I was quite impressed with him with his first touches, sat Doku down. That was quite good. I know that's a little bit.
He did.
And socials, I like that. I like Trossard when he's sort of being like that, having our best opportunity as well. You gotta give credit to him for getting into that position because we didn't quite get into those positions a lot.
Definitely.
I'm going to give him a 7, though. I'm not going to be too harsh again for not playing the ball across. It's a lot easier for us to say that in those scenarios. I think his first touch in that incident let him down. It was too close to his feet. He needs to get that out forward because if he gets it forward, then he's able to get the crossing with his left foot. But it was too close to his right. He kept it there. So that's why he should have done better, but I'm going to go 7 for Trossard.
I think 7's calm, man. I think people can say what they want about Jesus and Havertz, and we love Bukayo Saka, but isolated to that game, nothing to really count about. Trossard had a great impact in comparison to some of the names I said, so I think 7's good. I'm not going to get him for either not scoring or assisting the chance, but on another day I would Trossard. I think you've got the quality to do a lot better there, but it is what it is. So we've got a 7 for Trossard, an 8 for Partey. What did you make for Tomiyasu? I'll give him a 7. He had some moments where he looked rusty, but he did all right, man.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I think he's probably our best 1v1 defender in Tomiyasu. But Doku got a ball. I think did he get past him in that one moment? I think he did when he got past
really.
him. But then I was able to make a recovery challenge. But Tomiyasu, he was a little bit more rusty than I kind of expect him to be. He played 45 minutes behind the closed door friendly, but he came on, made an impact. Doku had no change out of him. So yes, what did you give him? A 7?
Yeah.
7 for Tomiyasu as well.
And finally, Martinelli.
You watched the game again, so you might be better to say this in
I'm
terms
saying
of
6.
I was thinking the 6 anyway.
It's not that you was terrible. It's just you couldn't really impact the game's kind of not that it's done, but
it
it's
came
just
on the 75th minute. Was it?
Yeah, it's a 6, man. There was one ball towards the end where I'm being very harsh on Declan Rice, and I think it went over Martinelli's head. It kind of hit his head and then hit his foot and went out for a corner. But I was thinking, Declan Rice nicked it. He did that dribbling thing and he's pulled it over the top. And I was thinking, Declan, if you just took a bit off that and gave Martinelli something against Guardiola, we'd be in there. I think Martinelli. It's harsh, and I'm not trying to belittle Saka, but he had more of an impact than Saka. I feel he brought something, but I don't think it was as much as Trossard. I think 6 for Martinelli, but as you said, he came on in the 75th minute. I'm not expecting anything beyond the 6 unless you go on and score the winner.
I really wanted to see him on the left, though, to be honest. But I think maybe because Saka only had one training session, Arteta said that's why he brought him on the right. Because the dynamics do change when you move from left to right. It's not exactly the same when you're a winger or even a fullback. But
why do you think he done that? Like he didn't put Martinelli on the left and put Trossard because you could, as you know, Trossard looks a bit better.
I'm not quite sure why. I think maybe it's a little bit more to do with defensively. Martinelli's better defensively in tracking his runners, and Vardio was probably their fullback that was getting beyond wide areas a little bit more. So maybe it's because of that. But I think you're lacking a little bit with him in behind, and maybe he also thinks defensively he can do that, but we can exploit that space with his speed in that left hand channel because Vardio was pressing and going up a bit further and trying to join the attack. I would have preferred Martinelli on the left, and then who knows what would have happened if Martinelli was had that Trossard opportunity, because he's got that speed, that acceleration to create that separation between him and Akanji. And then if Trossard is there at the back post, nobody
it's happy days, isn't it?
Finishing, at the back post. But it is what it is. But Arsenal get a draw. 4 points from City and Liverpool. You would have snapped. I would have snapped.
If you told me that a few months, if you told me that in December, I would say
the start of the season.
Yeah, if you told me that at the start of the season, then Kyrgios going to be playing left back, with the greatest of respect to Kyrgios. Some of the most impressive performances a draw against City, blitzing a couple teams with a whole heap of goals, beating City and Liverpool at the Emirates. They've been achieved without, on paper, our strongest 11. This is why I always say to fans, we need a squad. And for Mikel Arteta, I think, for the next summer and beyond, I don't want to see them comments about we've got one of the finished squads in the Premier League, because we're moving into territory where we need to cut these out, because it feels like we're flirting with success. It feels like we're within touching distance. Just need to get over the line now, in my opinion.
That's it, and that's it, and getting over the line is going to be a lot to do with the psychology and mentality of these players. If we were able to do it, we're going to learn a lot. Again, like we did last season, and why Arteta made the transfers that he did, even though it was a shock to many that we brought Havertz in. I think we're seeing now for this type of fixture the option to go long, someone that does give us that due diligence off the ball, and why we're able to score so many set pieces, adding that other threat within the box, and his experience as well in big situation, big games. I think that's when we kind of see the best in Havertz, to be honest with you.
I can't lie. Havertz is a big. I think everyone's a big game player because they've shown it. But if I had to say big game players for me with my heart, I think Declan Rice, from what I've seen. I actually think Kai Havertz. I'd extend that to Jorginho. I would say Saliba, Gabriel, Benjamin White. I'd say Gabriel Jesus, and I'm probably missing out a couple. But like DS has said there, mentality is key. Like, it feels like we actually believe that we're not better than City, but we can hang there. Liverpool is as well. It feels like, okay, we respect you lot, but we've got our own problems. And last season, obviously, because it was the first time we kind of went through it, I don't think we genuinely believed. Now, I know two seasons are the same, but I watched how they walked out at the Etihad versus the Etihad last season. And for me anyways, last year, it looked like the game was won and lost in the dressing room. this season, it looked like there was belief. Like in previous years, Arsenal players is like, if they find out they're playing Haaland, regardless of what he does, they get scared. It looks like Saliba and Gabriel and everyone's excited to be in these high pressure moments. And that's testament to Arteta and everything else, man. So listen, let's hope it can keep going. Let's hope against Luton, against Brighton, we're going. And whenever we do these shows, we're still winning, man. Let people know they can find you if I let you get out of here, bro. As usual, big respect for chopping it up with myself, man.
I really appreciate the invite again, DJ. I always love chatting football with you. We agree with a lot of things. We have nice little debates and others, but I really appreciate the platform again, man. And big up to everyone in the chat. Your thoughts and opinions, it's key. Make sure you smash the like button if you haven't done so already.
Exactly.
DJs will be telling you that. But you can find me at Tariq Talks, guys. I do a lot more Premier League focused content. I'm a massive Arsenal fan, as you can tell. But DG's the home for Arsenal content right there. So really appreciate you again, my man. And yeah, don't forget, I want to get that like button pop up. Is he going to pop up for us?
Nah, it's flopping you.
It's flopping.
You tried. He's calm. But as the man said, make sure you're following, you're subscribing. Make sure you're checking out Tariq Talks as well. All information's in the description. Make sure you're following him on Twitter as well. And yeah, Arsenal fans, may it continue. Again, if you've just cut in at some points during the live stream, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm sure you lot agree and disagree with a lot of what we said. And we just want to hear your thoughts. Foot would be boring if we didn't hear you lot's opinions, unless you're Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher. But yeah, people, man, we appreciate you lot for tuning in. I'm back at 4:30. T, let me let you enjoy what's left of your bank holiday Monday. Folks, one love. But remember, no matter what Kyrgios does, I haven't seen him do this.
Against this right back, Charlie, definitely.
There's always just that active and that defending. I think it's like. Easy, 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 easy.